Will I say unlucky? Why not help? Why watch her die? This is one of the most painful stories ever in the history of New York. The story of Kitty Genovese. She cried. She pleaded, she struggled, but was denied freedom. Her words, "Oh my God, I have been stabbed," while others watch from their windows, doors, without doing anything to help or save her. The night is cold, the silence broken only by the faint hum of streetlights. A trembling hand grips a small bloodied knife, the blade reflecting the flicker of a passing car. In the distance, sirens echo faintly, growing louder, drawing closer, but not close enough. A shadow lingers against the brick wall, breath heavy, movements precise, calculating. The sound of heels clicking desperately on the pavement cuts through the air. Then a scream, sharp, terrified, desperate, splits the night. Windows slide open above, blinds twitch, but no one steps forward. A figure collapses on the pavement, and in that frozen instant, the city feels colder than ever. If you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe and show some support. It helps us uncover more stories like this. Her name was Kitty Genovese, a 28-year-old woman living in Queens, New York. She was a bar manager, a friend, a daughter, a lover, a woman whose life should have stretched much longer than it did. On March 13, 1964, as the city that never sleeps pulled its curtains closed for the night, Kitty's path crossed with a predator. The streets were dim, the corners empty, and the shadows seemed to stretch endlessly across the brick walls of Kew Gardens. She had parked her car and was walking the short distance home when she felt it. Eyes on her, a presence trailing her, the unmistakable weight of being hunted. The man was Winston Moseley, 29 years old, married, a father, but carrying a hunger that few could comprehend. His steps quickened behind her, his breathing uneven but determined. Kitty turned, caught the glint of something metallic, and panic shot through her veins. She ran, her heels cracking against the pavement, echoing into the windows of sleeping neighbors. And then, a voice cut the night, deep and full of menace. "Don't run." But she did. She had no choice. The first strike came fast, the blade cutting into her back as she cried out, her scream rising into the stillness of Kew Gardens. Lights flicked on across the rows of apartments. Shadows appeared in the windows. The silence broke with her desperate pleas. "Please, help me." For a moment, it seemed the city was awake, listening. But no footsteps came, no doors opened. No one descended the stairs to chase the attacker away. Some neighbors later admitted they thought it was nothing more than a lover's quarrel, a drunken fight on the street. Others simply watched for a moment, then drew their curtains shut. Kitty staggered, tried to run again, her hands clutching her side as blood darkened her blouse. Moseley followed, calm, patient, almost methodical in his cruelty. He was not rushing. He knew no one would stop him. He had time. The attack stretched across 35 harrowing minutes. Kitty cried out again and again, her voice growing weaker each time. She managed to crawl toward her apartment building, leaving a dark trail behind her on the concrete. At one point, the attacker disappeared into the shadows, and Kitty, desperate, tried to drag herself to safety. She reached the doorway, trembling, gasping for air. But the predator returned, stepping out of the darkness like death itself, finishing what he had begun. 38 witnesses. That was the number recorded. 38 pairs of eyes who heard her screams, who peeked through blinds or cracked open windows, but none who came running. Not one who called the police in time to save her. She died there, alone, just feet from her own home. The silence of the city was louder than her cries, louder than the sirens that finally arrived when it was far too late. The newspapers seized the story, splashing it across front pages. 38 who saw murder didn't call the police. The world recoiled in shock. How could an entire community watch and do nothing? Was it fear? Was it apathy? Or was it something deeper, a flaw buried in human nature itself? Kitty's death was no longer just about a single victim or a single killer. It became a mirror held up to society, forcing people to confront a chilling truth. In the aftermath, psychologists and sociologists pored over the case. Why had so many remained silent? Why did no one move until it was too late? What they discovered would change psychology forever. Two young researchers, Bibb Latané and John Darley, were gripped by the case, and they decided to test human behavior. They created experiments that revealed a disturbing pattern. The more witnesses there are, the less likely any one of them is to act. This phenomenon became known as the bystander effect. Responsibility, it seemed, was diluted in a crowd. Everyone thought someone else would help, someone else would call, someone else would take the risk. And so, in the end, no one did. Kitty's death had exposed a hidden weakness in the human psyche, a quiet cruelty in inaction, proving that sometimes indifference kills as surely as a knife. The story spread worldwide, sparking debates about morality, courage, and fear. Lawmakers took notice, police protocols were questioned, and cities began campaigns urging citizens not to stay silent. "If you see something, say something," became a rallying cry decades later. Kitty Genovese was gone, but her name was etched into history as the woman whose tragedy revealed the shadows in all of us. For Kitty's family, the grief was unbearable. Her parents, Vincent and Rachel, were crushed by the loss, never fully recovering from the weight of knowing how she died. Her younger brother, Bill, would later dedicate his life to speaking about her case, ensuring the world remembered her not just as a symbol, but as a person, bright, funny, alive, before she was reduced to a headline. Winston Moseley was captured soon after the murder. Police caught him not through witnesses, but by accident, when he was arrested for another crime. He confessed coldly, with no trace of remorse, admitting he had killed Kitty simply because he wanted to kill someone. His words were like ice, his demeanor detached, chilling. He was sentenced to life in prison, where he remained until his death decades later. But the story was never truly about him. It was about the silence, the inaction, the chilling reality that dozens of people had the chance to save a life and chose not to. Kitty's murder was no longer just a crime. It was a test of conscience, one that New York failed, and one that the entire world has been grappling with ever since. The image of Kitty in her final moments, staggering, screaming, crawling towards safety, burned into public memory. It forced people to question themselves. What would I have done? Would I have gone down? Would I have picked up the phone? And that self-doubt, that uneasy reflection, was the legacy of her story. The bystander effect remains one of the most studied phenomena in psychology. It shows up in countless scenarios. Bullying in schools, assaults on crowded trains, even emergencies on busy highways. Time and time again, people freeze, waiting for someone else to step forward. Kitty's name is tied to every one of these cases, a reminder of the cost of silence. Decades later, scholars revisited the details. Some argued the story was exaggerated, that not all 38 had clearly understood what was happening. But the damage was done. The perception of apathy had already reshaped law, culture, and conscience. Whether every detail was perfectly accurate or not, the world had learned a powerful lesson from Kitty's death. Silence is complicity. Today, her story is still taught in classrooms, whispered in documentaries, and written into textbooks. She is remembered not only as a victim, but as the catalyst for a global conversation about human responsibility. Her death ensured that future tragedies would be seen differently, that people would hesitate before drawing the curtain closed. Her name became the reason to act. In the end, Kitty Genovese never got to go home that night. She never saw the morning sun rise over New York again. But her voice, those cries for help that went unanswered, still echo in the walls of history. And the world, haunted by that night, has been listening ever since. This is not just the story of one woman's murder. It is the story of us all. A mirror held up to our faces, asking, when the scream shatters the night, when the window blinds shake, when the silence is heavy, will you be the one who acts, or will you let history repeat itself?